Star Citizen's latest PTU patch brings hundreds of bug fixes, crucial gameplay updates, and an exciting new chapter in the Save Stanton event. Yet despite these strides forward, 4.0.1 remains far from ready for prime time. CIG is working tirelessly to address long-standing issues and refine critical systems, but lingering problems like mission cooldowns and gameplay limitations remind us just how much work is left to do. Welcome back to Last Week in the Verse, where we cover everything happening in Star Citizen. This week we're diving deep into the latest PTU updates, including the ongoing Save Stanton Chapter 2 event, gameplay adjustments in Pyro, and a staggering list of bug fixes that address major player concerns. From contested zones to vehicle updates, the changes show progress, but they also highlight the challenges still standing in the way of a fully functional 4.0.1. Let's face it, Star Citizen's development history hasn't been without its challenges. From persistent bugs and unplayable patches to delayed features, these issues have often tested the community's patience. The latest PTU patch directly tackles many of these challenges, focusing on bug fixes, gameplay stability, and community-reported issues, marking a notable step forward. The patch stands out as a significant one, with hundreds of fixes addressing problems reported through the Issue Council, showcasing a clear commitment by CIG to not only implement new features, but ensure they work before hitting live servers. This marks a promising shift in priorities, one where stability and functionality are taking center stage. Now, if you're as invested in Star Citizen's growth as much as I am and want to stay updated on the game's evolution, now's the perfect time to subscribe to the channel. With every episode, we're diving into the wins, the hurdles, and everything in between. Together, we can navigate the verse and uncover what's next for this ambitious project in 2025. The PTU updates last week delivered a mix of content additions, gameplay tweaks, and critical bug fixes, giving us a closer look at CIG's priorities. While there's clear progress on stability and new features, not every change feels like a step forward. The highlight of the week is the continuation of the Save Stanton Chapter 2 event, now taking players deeper into Pyro. The storyline builds on the reputation-driven mission systems introduced earlier, with new progress trackers in the journal that help players follow their alignment with various factions. While this adds an interesting layer to gameplay, it's not without its quirks. Missions for the event and other missions are now locked to individual reputations and cannot be shared. I can understand CIG's desire to prevent players with high reputation from boosting others who have yet to build up their own. This limitation makes sense on paper, but feels restrictive in a game that heavily promotes collaborative play. Star Citizen is at its core about building shared experiences, and mechanics like this can unintentionally discourage the teamwork that makes these events and missions truly engaging. Then there's the personal cooldown timer added to missions after completion, a change that absolutely adds no meaningful value and frankly makes no sense at all. Players are already struggling to consistently pull missions in the current game state. So why are we being arbitrarily limited in accepting missions when the system itself often leaves us scrambling for viable contracts? This feels like a solution in search of a problem and only adds unnecessary friction to the gameplay experience. It's one thing to encourage diversity in player activities, but when mission availability is already inconsistent, introducing cooldowns does more harm than good. Now, shifting focus to environmental updates, Pyro continues to receive much-needed polish. Collision fixes for outposts and contested zones aim to resolve frustrating bugs where players could bypass intended paths or get stuck in geometry. Meanwhile, contested zones saw further performance optimization, reflecting ongoing efforts to stabilize these high-traffic areas. On a smaller but equally important scale, asteroid exclusion zones near jump tunnel exits were expanded, reducing the risk of unpleasant surprises when exiting the jump point. These adjustments highlight CIG's commitment to refining the environment and making gameplay smoother, even in Pyro's chaotic and dangerous setting. New gameplay features like harvestables in acidic caves may seem minor, but they point toward a broader push to add depth to the universe's exploration mechanics. Similarly, adjustments to stealth mechanics, slightly reducing the impact of IR/EM modifiers on components, reflect efforts to fine-tune ship roles and enhance combat's tactical complexity. These updates may not grab headlines, but represent the kind of incremental improvements that shape the game's long-term identity. Bug fixes were another big focus last week, addressing long-standing pain points across multiple gameplay areas. One major win was resolving ship despawn issues, which have been a recurring frustration for players. Cargo visibility problems in freight elevator kiosks were also fixed, allowing cargo hauling missions to function as intended, a small but crucial improvement for players invested in the logistics side of the game. On the vehicle front, updates to ships like the RSI Polaris and Drake Cutter corrected issues that, while minor, had significant impacts on functionality. For example, the Polaris torpedo console now displays the correct names, and the Cutter can now finally accommodate its full cargo grid. Save Stanton Chapter 2 missions also received critical bug fixes, such as resolving soft locks caused by completing all 3 faction intro paths, or clearing AI incorrectly marked as external when they are actually inside structures. These adjustments bring the event closer to its intended experience, though the fact that they were needed at all is a reminder of how complex Star Citizen systems are and how much refinement they still require. But for every fix, lingering issues remind us of how far there is to go. Known problems like invulnerable player characters, broken cargo hauling mechanics, and unusable character customization screens paint a picture of a game still grappling with its own scale. Even mechanics like jump tunnels remain inconsistent, with players being warned midweek to avoid them due to the bugs that kick users out shortly after entry. It's clear that while progress is being made, the road to a stable and polished experience is still a long one. Technical performance was another area of focus, with multiple patches aimed at fixing client crashes, server crashes, and back-end service stalls. While these improvements are essential for the game's health, their impact can sometimes feel overshadowed by the persistent issues that remain unresolved. For example, fuel consumption bugs, which prevent hydrogen and quantum fuel from depleting, may seem like a minor oversight but have significant implications for gameplay balance and immersion. But looking ahead, it's clear that CIG is trying to strike a balance between introducing new content and addressing foundational issues. The expanded handyman missions in Pyro are a good example of this, providing more activities for players while also refining existing mission types. But obviously, as we've seen with the personal cooldown mechanic, not all changes are hitting the mark. It's a reminder that player feedback needs to remain a driving force in shaping these updates. Ultimately, last week's PTU updates are a mixed bag. On one hand, they demonstrate real progress, with bug fixes and content additions that bring Star Citizen closer to its vision. On the other hand, they highlight how much work remains, especially in ensuring that gameplay systems feel intuitive and rewarding. The introduction of features like reputation lock missions and cooldowns shows ambition, but ambition needs to be tempered with practicality, and sometimes what seems like a good idea on paper doesn't translate well in practice. Star Citizen continues to walk a fine line between progress and frustration, and last week's updates encapsulate that perfectly. The good news? CIG is moving forward. The challenge? They need to ensure that those steps forward don't create new obstacles along the way. The latest updates to the PTU represent a pivotal moment for Star Citizen's journey toward stability and polish. The ongoing Save Stanton Chapter 2 event is a testament to CIG's ambition, blending reputation-driven gameplay with narrative progression. However, the implementation of mission cooldowns and non-shareable contracts raises questions about how well these systems fit within the collaborative spirit of the game. The bug fixes and performance improvements show undeniable progress, with critical issues like despawning ships and unresponsive kiosks finally being addressed. However, the lingering technical hurdles like jump tunnel inconsistencies and persistent cargo hauling problems and even inventory problems underscore just how far we still have to go. This balance of wins and challenges highlights a critical juncture for 4.0.1. CIG is clearly working to deliver a playable and engaging experience, but the stakes are high. Players need not just new features, but systems that work seamlessly and foster the teamwork and immersion that the game promises. Whether last week's updates signal an actual turning point or a temporary reprieve remains to be seen. It's a reminder that in a project as ambitious as Star Citizen, every patch brings progress and a new set of questions. To wrap it up, last week's PTU updates paint a vivid picture of where Star Citizen is headed. We've seen significant strides in fixing bugs, refining gameplay systems, and delivering new content, such as the Save Stanton Chapter 2 event. But on the flip side, persistent issues remind us that while progress is being made, the road to a fully polished 4.0.1 is still a long one. Updates like personal mission cooldowns and non-shareable contracts, as we mentioned, though well-intentioned, feel at odds with the collaborative, player-driven spirit of the game. CIG's efforts to improve performance and stability are undeniable, and the fixes for long-standing problems like cargo visibility and contested zone bugs show that the developers are listening to the community. But as we inch closer to 4.0.1's release, the stakes are clear. Star Citizen needs more than just promises of potential. It needs reliable, polished systems that keep players engaged and excited for what's next. But what's your take on last week's PTU updates? Do you think the Save Stanton event and bug fixes represent meaningful progress, or are there lingering issues that overshadow the wins? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective and start a conversation. If you enjoyed this content and want to support the channel, consider becoming a member. Members not only get early access to videos and exclusive channels in our Discord, but also gain direct input on future content ideas, access to behind-the-scenes updates, and special recognition in videos. Your membership helps create high-quality content and ensures we can keep covering Star Citizen and its evolving universe in depth. And if you're curious about CIG's broader approach to Star Citizen's development, don't miss my recent video, where I explore whether their latest updates signal a shift in strategy. It's packed with insights into how this could impact the future of the game. As always, thanks for watching. Fly safe, pilots, and I'll see you in the verse. Havoc out.